Join us as we dive into a thrilling game from the 6th Prague Masters 2024. In this round 8.2 matchup, young chess prodigies Gukesh, Dommaraju, and Vincent Keymer face off in an intense battle. Gukesh, playing as white, takes on the formidable Vincent Keymer, who commands the black pieces. The game opens with the Nimzo-Indian Defense, 3 knights variation, promising a strategic and complex fight. Watch as these rising stars navigate through intricate tactics and deep positional play, showcasing their exceptional skills and competitive spirit. Don't miss out on this exciting encounter and analysis of every critical move. Let's start the game. White opens with the queen's pawn, a common and strong opening move. Black responds with the knight to control the center. White aims to dominate the center with another pawn. Black prepares to develop his bishop to a strong diagonal. White develops a knight, supporting the center and preparing to e-pawn to e4 square. Black pins the knight, an aggressive move that can disrupt White's plans. White develops another knight, aiming for control of the center squares. Black solidifies the pawn structure and prepares for further develop. White moves the queen to support the center and prepare for e4. Black castles, placing the king in safety. White develops the bishop, pinning Black's knight to the queen. Black develops a knight, challenging White's center and preparing for e5. White plays a 3, asking the bishop to decide its intentions. Black decides to exchange the bishop for the knight, giving up the bishop pair. White recaptures with the queen, keeping control of the center. Black plays h6, which is a move to kick the bishop away. White retreats the bishop, maintaining the pin. Black moves the rook to the open file, preparing for e5. White chooses to castle queenside rapidly. This decision could be influenced by factors, such as the presence of the light square bishop on f1 and the e2 pawn, which are delaying typical kingside development. Moreover, the white king keeping the safe zone. Black develops the bishop, connecting the rooks. White solidifies the center. Black finally pushes e5, challenging White's center and opening lines for the pieces. White repositions the queen. Moving the white queen to c2 serves a couple of purposes. One primary reason is to prevent Black's bishop from developing to f5. It keeps the queen centralized, potentially supporting future pawn advances or coordinating with other pieces for tactical operations. Moreover, the queen on c2 can also contribute to the defense of key squares and pieces in White's position. Black plays a 6, with the idea of advancing to b5 and prepares to expand on the queenside. This move doesn't significantly change the position. It prepares for potential expansion on the queen side but doesn't directly influence the central tension or piece activity. Bishop to g4. This is the effective move for Black. By placing the bishop on g4, it attacks the white knight on f3 and simultaneously pins the white rook on d1. This move reduces the tension in the center because it attacks a key central piece, the knight on f3, and challenges White's central control established by pawns on d4 and e3. along with black's pawns on e5 and d6. White develops the last minor piece. Bishop to d3 strategically controls a powerful diagonal with support from the queen on c2, while also contributing to the connection of white's rooks along the back rank. Black starts a kingside pawn storm. White decides to open the center by capturing the pawn. Black recaptures with the knight, placing it in the center. White exchanges knights, simplifying the position. Black recaptures with the rook, activating it. White's initial move begins with pushing the pawn to f4, which serves a dual purpose, targeting both the black rook on e5 and the black pawn on g5. Additionally, this move opens up the f-file, providing space for white's rook to occupy by moving the h1 rook to f1. Here, black's rook captures the white pawn on e3. In response, white captures black's pawn on g5. Black moves his knight to g4. White's bishop checks black's king on g8. Black's king moves to h8. White moves their bishop from h7 to f5. Black moves their rook from e3 to e5. In the primary line, black retreats the rook from e5 to c5. Now, this rook defends against white's pressure on the g5 pawn. White pushes the pawn to b4 in the next move. This move aims to attack the rook on c5. Additionally, it exerts pressure on the g5 pawn, defended by the rook on c5. As a result, the rook on c5 becomes unprotected, leaving the g5 pawn vulnerable. Another interesting variation is, black captures the white bishop. White retaliates by capturing the black rook. Then, black's queen moves to e7, aiming at the white pawn on e3. White responds by moving their king's rook to e1. In the primary line, in the main line, black retreats his rook to the c6 square. This leaves only one square for the rook to remain active. White brings the rook to the open file, applying additional pressure on black's pieces and gaining captures the pawn on g5, opening lines for an attack. Black moves the knight to g4. The knight has the potential to jump to squares e3 and e5 in future moves. These squares are considered strategic positions for the knight because they control important central squares and can put counter on white's position. A tactical shot that begins a series of forcing moves, leading to a winning advantage for white. If black retreats his king to h8 square, this move is a defensive maneuver, trying to get the king to a safer spot away from potential threats. White returns his bishop from h7 to e4, attacking the black rook on c6. This puts pressure on black's position. If black captures the pawn on e3 with the knight on g4, this is an aggressive move, trying to gain material advantage. In response, white's queen delivers a check targeting the black king and black knight on e3. This forces black to respond to the threat. So, black's king moves to f8, the only safe square. The black knight on g4 captures the white pawn on e3. In this position, the knight on e3 threatens to fork the white queen on c2 and the white rooks on d1 and f1. Additionally, the black rook on c6 applies pressure to the white pawn on c4, the queen on c2 and the king on c1. White sacrifices their rook by capturing the black f7 pawn. Black accepts the sacrifice by recapturing with their black king on f7. White's pawn advances to g6, delivering a check to the black king. The black king retreats to g7 square. White queen moves to b2, delivery checks to the black king. The black king moves to f8 square. White's queen moves to h8 square, delivering a check to the black king. Checkmate. The black king is checkmated because it has no legal moves to escape the check, and it's in a position where it's threatened by white's queen and has no friendly pieces to protect it. Black retreats the king to f8 square. White queen on c2 moves to f2 square, delivering a check to the black king on f8, threatening both the black knight on e3 and the black king on f8. Black bishop from d7 moves to f5, blocking the checking line along the f-file. White bishop on h4 captures the black queen on d8. Black rook captures the white pawn on c4, delivering a check to the white king on c1. White king moves to d2 square. Black rook moves to c2, delivering a check to the white king on d2 and the white queen on f2. White king captures the black knight on e3 and moves to the e3 square. Black rook on d2 captures the white queen on f2. White king on e3 captures the black rook on f2 square. Black rook on a8 captures the white bishop on d8 square. White pawn on g6 moves to g7, delivering a check to the black king. Black king captures the white pawn on g7. White bishop on h7 captures the black bishop on f5 square. Black rook on d8 moves to f8 square. White pawn on g2 moves to g4, defending the bishop on f5, supported by the white g-pawn. Black pawn on h6 moves to h5, on to h3. Black captures the white pawn on g4 with their h-pawn. White pawn on h3 recaptures the black pawn on g4. Black knight to e5. This move is defensive and helps centralize black's position. Black rook on c6. It pressures the white c-file, especially the c4 pawn and the white queen on c2 and king on d1. White pushes c-pawn to c5, blocking the c-file. Black captures white g5 pawn, with h6 pawn attacking to white's bishop. White bishop retreats to g3, sets pressure along the h2 b8 diagonal. Black queen moves from d8 to e7, reorganizing to avoid the powerful d-file. White bishop moves from h7 to e4, targets the black rook on c6. Since white puts pressure along the f-file with rook on f1, black moves king from f8 to g7 to avoid the f-file. White captures black rook on c6 with bishop on e4. Black retakes with the bishop on d7. White queen moves from c2 to c3, targeting black king. Black pushes f6 pawn in response. White advances h4 pawn. Black captures with g5 pawn. White retakes h4 pawn with bishop on g3. Black defends f6 pawn by putting rook on f8. White lifts rook from d1 to d4, aiming to put pressure on black f6 pawn. In the primary game, black's decision would be mistaken. Black moves his queen to defensive square e7. In response, white decisive blow his pawn to g6 square. This pawn move resulted sacrificing the white bishop on h4. In response, black easily takes white bishop on h4. As a result, white rook capturing black pawn on f7 and delivery checks the balk king on f8. As a response, black king goes to e8 square. Successive blow of white queen moves to e4 square. Delivery checks the black king on e8. As a response, black king goes to d8 square. As a successive blow, white rook moves faux f8 and delivery checks the black king on e8. As a response, black has only one move. This move is black bishop blockade the white checking line. Now white queen capturing the black bishop on e8 and checking at the black king. The black king is checkmated at this square d8. So black bolds move his knight on g4 moves the e5 square instead of black king moves to d8. The knight on e5 blocks the white checking line. As a response, white takes on black queen on h4 square. As a response, black rook on c6 capturing the c4 pawn and checking the white king and queen simultaneously. As a response, white queen takes on black rook on c4 square. As a response, black knight on e5 takes on white queen on c4. As a successive blow, by moving white rook on d1 moves to f1 square, causing the doubling the rooks along the f-file, making the threats. As a response, black bishop moves to e6, attacking the white rook on f7. As a successive blow, white rook moves faux f8 and delivery checks the black king on e8. So, black king moves to d7 square. As a blow, white rook takes on black rook on a8. As response, black knight takes on pawn on e3. So white rook on f1 moves to f7 square and delivery checks the black king on d7. So, black king goes to c6 square. As a final blow, white rook moves to e7, attacking both the black bishop and knight. As a response, black king goes to d5 and defends the bishops on e6. As a final blow, white moves pawn to g7 and aiming to this pawn is queening, and the game concluded. Black moves the pawn to f6 instead of capturing the white bishop on h4 with the queen. White's bishop and rook attack the weak pawn on f6, which is defended by the black queen on e7 and the black knight on g4. White pawn attacks the black knight. Black knight captures the white pawn on e3, creating threats and forks. White bishop takes the weak pawn on f6. Black knight takes the white queen. White bishop captures the black queen, delivering a check to the black king on f8. Black king retakes the bishop. White takes the black knight. Black rook checks the black king on c2 by taking the c4 pawn. Black king moves to d3, attacking the black rook. Black pawn moves to d5, protecting the rook on c4. White pushes the g-pawn to g7, aiming to promote it to a queen. Black rook moves to e4. White captures the black rook on e4. Black bishop checks the white king at b5. White king moves to e3. Black bishop captures the white rook. White takes the black pawn on d5 with the bishop. Black bishop retreats to b5. White promotes the g-pawn to a queen, concluding the game. Black king moves to g7. White takes the black knight, threatening the f6 pawn. Black defends the f6 pawn by moving the queen rook to f8. White queen threatens the black f6 pawn and the black king from c3. Black pushes the b-pawn to b5. White bishop checks both the black king and queen by capturing the f6 pawn. Black retakes the white bishop with the rook on f8. White takes the black rook. Black retakes the white rook with the black queen. White captures black queen. Black king retakes the white queen on f6. White checks the black king by moving the rook from d1 to f1. If the black king retreats to the g7 square, white checks the black king by moving the rook to the f7 square, attacking both the black king and the black bishop on d7. Therefore, the black king retreats to the f8 square. White captures the black bishop, concluding the game. Black king moves to e5. White pushes the g-pawn to g7, aiming to promote it to a queen. Black captures the white c-pawn and checks the white king. White king moves to d2. Black defends the g8 square by moving the black bishop to e6. White rook checks the black king on f5. If black king goes to e4, white rook moves to c5 and delivers a check. Black blocks the f5 square with the bishop on f5. White captures the black bishop and checks the black king on e4. Black king is checkmated on e4, concluding the game. Black bishop captures the white rook on f5. White bishop recaptures the black bishop on f5 and threatens to promote the g-pawn to a queen by moving it to g8. In the primary line, black moves their d-pawn to d5, attacking white's c-pawn and putting pressure on white's queen and king along the c-file with their rook on c6. White captures black's knight. Black captures white's c-pawn, simultaneously checking white's queen and king on c2 and c1 respectively. White responds by capturing black's rook on c4 with their queen. In retaliation, black captures white's queen on c4. White's bishop captures black's pawn on f6. Black responds by capturing white's pawn on e3, checking white's king on c1. White defends their rook by moving it to d2 to block black's checking line. Black attacks white's rook by moving their c-pawn to c3. White pushes their g-pawn to g7, checking black's king on f8, leaving it with only one square to move to f7. Black's king moves to f7. Removing the white bishop on f6 clears the path for white's rook on f1 to check black's king on f7. Black's king moves to e7. White's bishop moves to c5, delivering a check to black's king. Black's king moves to e6. White captures black's queen on e3. Black takes white's rook on d2, delivering a check to white's king. White retakes black's pawn. Black's king moves to e7. White takes h6 pawn. Black takes g4 pawn. White rook moves to f8 and the game is concluding. White takes f6 pawn, checking the black king on f8 instead of capturing the black rook with the queen. The black king retreats to the g7 square. White's rook moves to f7, delivering a check to the black king on g7 and the black queen on e7. Black responds by capturing the white rook with the black queen. White recaptures the black queen. Black's rook captures the white queen on c2, delivering a check to the white king on c1. White recaptures the black rook with the white bishop. Black captures the g4 pawn. White's rook captures the d5 pawn. Black's rook moves to f8. Overall, white gains a material advantage, leading to a favorable conclusion. In the primary line, instead of retreating to g7, the black king moves to e8. White advances the g-pawn to g7, threatening to promote it to a queen on g8. Black responds by having the black rook located on c4 capture the white queen on c2, delivering a check to the white king on c1. White recaptures the black rook with the white bishop. In response, black captures the g7 pawn. White's bishop moves to g6, delivering a checkmate to the black king on e8. The black king retreats to the d8 square. Finally, white's rook moves to f8, delivering a discovered check to the black king on d8 from the white bishop on h4 and the white rook on f8, leading to checkmate. In the primary line, the black queen captures the white bishop on g6. White responds by having the rook capture the black queen. Overall, with this exchange, white gains a material advantage, leading to a winning position for white. Thank you for tuning in to my channel and staying updated on my latest content. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate your support by subscribing, liking, and sharing my videos across other platforms.